Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Lieutenant Colonel Morris, and I'll be giving you a briefing. This is just to the D4, so those that are graduating this year and getting ready to come on to active duty. So I'll be briefing you on some things to expect from now until graduation. And forgive me while we admit other people into the room. And then answering your questions. I know you have a lot of questions about assignments and what to do now that you know where your assignment is, about how to move to that assignment. So we'll be going over all of that today. You've seen this slide before. This is just a reminder of who I am. And I wanted to let you know that this summer I will be PCSing and going to another base. So someone else will be coming in. I would encourage you to make sure that you are using my OrgBox email address, particularly the later into the summer, like June timeframe. That's the afpc.dpmnd.graduate.dental.edu@us.af.mil. You can always email me directly and CC that just to make sure that whoever is doing this job will be sure to get your email. The person replacing me her is Major Kelly Buckshire, and I'm excited for you to meet her soon. So all right, let's get going. I'm going to actually start off with Major Cooper today. She's our dental assignments officer, and she's going to be talking to you about assignments in general and your assignments, particularly that you just received. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. It's Major Cooper. Um, yes, here's my slide. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce myself and kind of show some pictures of, there's quite a few of them from the AAGD that I went to. So I went to Travis Air Force Base AAGD 1, and that was in 2016 to 2017. And you get to, really connect with your co-residents, and we had a great time. We even scheduled our PT test all on the same day together, took it all together. There's some of us on graduation day taking a selfie. Um, and then there was an incentive. It wasn't an incentive flight, but we got to see some of the airframes and go in it and just really learn about the other things of the Air Force that we support and we don't necessarily do every day. So some really cool opportunities. And then another picture at professional military education, PME. So that's more so after you guys are a few years into the military, you'll learn more about that. But if you get the opportunity to go in residence, I would go. You meet a lot of people across the Air Force that are, your same rank and have different jobs in the Air Force. So it's nice to kind of learn about what other people do in the Air Force. And then I was also stationed at Cannon Air Force Base, which is a really small town in New Mexico, but it is very close by Albuquerque, New Mexico. And there's a lot of really cool stuff to do there, including that picture there is the international.
Hey, Major Cooper. Major Cooper. I'm sorry. I think I muted you. Can you unmute yourself? There you
Okay,
go.
yes.
Sorry about that. Just a couple yeah, back up just a little bit. Sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to think where you guys last heard. Um, okay, well, the last two pictures, professional military education, is the one where we're in those maroon shirts. That is in residence opportunity that you guys might have a few years into your residency. And it's nice to just meet people of um, the same rank, but in other professions, other jobs around the Air Force. And then the last picture is me at the International Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I went probably every year that I was stationed at Cannon because it was so close, just a few hours away. And that one is a really cool event where you get to see all the hot air balloons. Kind of, you get there at the crack of dawn and watch them fly. And then there's a bunch of vendors there too. So if you're ever stationed at Cannon Air Force Base, that is one thing that I do recommend doing. Okay, so we'll get into assignments. So as the assignments officer, we work very closely with Lieutenant Colonel Morris and the residency selection board to help put the right resident to the right location. So after you guys get your selection board rankings, and then we take your preference list and we take a few weeks and we try to balance the residents at all the different locations, based on preference, but also where you rank in the selection board. We also look at, male to female ratios and not have just like one whole base with just males and another base with just females. Um, we also do account for late degree conferral dates. So if you are graduating very, very late and we still want to get you into the AGD for this next or this coming year, we may have that does sway what assignment or what location you may have to be at because with COT or OTS, having to do that right before your travel days become very limited. So we need you to be at an AGD that is very close to Maxwell Air Force Base. So that we did take into consideration as well. And then obviously we try to give everybody, one of their top 4 locations. Obviously there are other things that, go into assignments, join spouse with people with spouses who are in the military as well. And so we have to work with their assignment officer, their career, try to come up with a good base that has a billet for both people. So that's another thing that we take into consideration as well. Next slide. So we do our best to, serve you guys, your family. Um, it really comes down to the needs of the Air Force at the end of the day. But if you are not, going to a base that was in your top 5, um, you know, just know that you're there for a year, you're there to learn. Every AGD1 residency is very good. They're all very similar. And so then our office, we still keep track of your desires and your family situations. So coming out of the AGD, you will have another wish list and that you'll send back to our office. And from there, we'll speak to your program directors and, kind of do the same thing except for your first duty station. So also another thing is where we have sent you guys your assignments, don't make like super solidified plans, until we're very close. And Lieutenant Colonel Morris may speak on that more as she talks about the move, because some things do happen. It's rare, but there may be onesie twosie assignments that end up getting switched just due to, various, you know, emergency type things. But we do just mention that. But for the most part, that is where you will be going. So we do take into consideration your spouse's profession, and things like that. But if we can make it work, to where we need you at a specific base and it accommodates your spouses, then we try to do that. But at the end of the day, it does come down to you and your ability and the clinical needs of that base. If you have any questions about the residency, I believe you guys, if you don't have it already, you will have the program director that you will be going to, their contact information. So you can utilize them if you have any questions or to consult with. And then the likelihood of you staying at your AGD location after that year is less than 1%. So we normally move everybody after that based on if there's extenuating circumstances or, like I said, joint spouse situations where the spouse just moved to meet you at that base, we may need to keep you there longer just so that way they can stay in their role a little bit longer as well. But for the most part, everybody moves after your AGD residency. Next slide. And then how frequently do we move? So your move after the AGD or any other graduate dental education residency, so you'll still move. If you go to somewhere in the States, so in the continental US, the time on station will be for 4 years. So you'll be at that base for 4 years before you can go anywhere else. There are a few exceptions that after 2 years you can go to an graduate dental education residency. So if you apply for PROS or Perio, etc., you can move after the 2 years to start the residency program. And then if your HPSP active duty service commitment ends before your 4 years, so say I'll just use myself as an example. When I was at Cannon Air Force Base, I moved there and I had a 3-year HPSP commitment. I still had to stay there for 4 years if I wanted to go to another CONUS base. So what happens is you end up, your active duty service commitment can expire, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I will move. I can stay at that base if I want to stay on active duty, or I could separate at my latest active duty service commitment, and we'll go into that a little bit later. But your HPSP, just because it ends, it's 3 years and you want to stay in and you want to move, there's time on station rules that we have to abide by before moving. Okay, next slide. And so that was for in the States, so CONUS bases. So this is for overseas OCONUS bases. If you go to an overseas base out of your AAGD1, more or less it's around 2 years. They're kind of leaning, so I have a chart here. It's pretty, there's a lot of numbers in there, but it just depends on which location you're going to, and then also if you go unaccompanied or accompanied. So accompanied means that you have a spouse or dependent that's PCSing with you to the base. And all of those rules does come down to locally, the unaccompanied and the accompanied. But from our charts, this is more or less what it is. So some bases is 3 years, some 2. We do have opportunities for remote locations, short tours that you can do. And with those, sometimes if we cannot afford to, we can allow you a follow-on base if you volunteer for those remote locations. And right now, those 2 are Turkey, Incirlik, and Kunsan in Korea, no longer Osan, because those tour lanes have extended. So these are some of the overseas. And obviously, as you guys get into your AAGD1, you may have more questions. You can ask your program directors. or you can reach back out to us as it gets closer and you start looking at what you want to do after AGD. Next slide. This one, so I did kind of speak on time on station rules. If you want to move from CONUS to CONUS, so in the continental United States, it's 4 years, 2 years to training. So we talked about that. What I did want to hit on is active duty service commitments for PCSing. So I know that you guys have your HPSP active duty service commitment. That's what the ADSC stands for. So you have your HPSP service commitment, but then there's also PCS active duty service commitment. So after your AGD, if you are on a 2-year HPSP and you move in August of your AGD, you'll pick up a service commitment for PCSing. And so that goes when you get to your base. So if your HPSP expires in July, but you PCS in August, you do pick up a PCS active duty service commitment. And so moving from the States to another base in the States is 24 months or 2 years. And then anytime that you come back from overseas, you do gain a 1-year active duty service commitment.
This is all if you elect to move, correct?
Yeah.
The additional active duty service commitment.
Oh, yes. So, yes. So if you decide you want to stay in, well, you still pick it up after your, they run concurrently with your HPSP. So after your AGD1 and we move you to a specific base, you're getting an active duty service commitment that runs at the same time as your HPSP. And basically, whichever one is longer is your commitment. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. But for the most part, they kind of fall together, don't they? Like your orders at whatever base you're gaining base, they run concurrent with your active duty service commitment for the most part, right?
Yes. It will just depend on months. So sometimes it comes down to months. If your HPSP is July, what are we at? So July 2028, we'll say, if that's when your HPSP ends, but you moved this summer, your ADSC for moving will end up being, so like if you move in August, it'll end up being August 2028 instead of July 2028. So you have to meet your latest active duty service commitment.
Major Cooper, can I pipe
Yes.
in?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I would just, for most HPSP, if you're planning on, separating right after your HPSP commitment is finished, most have a 4 or a 3-year scholarship. And, a PCS service commitment is not going to impact you because, like she said, they run concurrently at the same time as your HPSP commitment. So, you have a 3 or 4-year HPSP commitment. Honestly, I think most HPSP people don't even realize that they incurred a service commitment for their PCS because it's served before their HPSP commitment is served. The people that really need to pay attention to this are those that have a 2-year HPSP commitment because they'll come in, do their 1 year of AGD1, which does not count towards their HPSP commitment. They move, incur a 2-year PCS, and that they move in August, but usually their HPSP commitment ends in July, like she's saying. So, a month might not seem like a big deal But if you're, let's say, trying to separate and enter a civilian residency program you've been selected for, then it becomes a very big deal because you want to separate in June or July, but your service commitment does not end until August. So this is a very detailed and way ahead of really what you need to be like focused on right now. But I think this her main point here is to have awareness that you can incur service commitments for other things while you're in the service. And so how do you know what your longest service commitment is and when you can separate? There's a military record called a CERF when you're on active duty that you can pay attention to. Your residency directors, you will know about it. You will be pointed to it. You need to pay attention to what that service commitment on your CERF says, and that can tell you when you're supposed to separate. And if it doesn't make sense to you, if you're not sure why it is what it is, start asking questions and you'll be able to figure it out.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Next slide. Okay. Are there any questions as far as what I've gone over or assignments or anything like that for me?
Don't be shy. If you want to ask anything about your current assignment you got or anything like that, Major Cooper is on the line. She may not be here at the very end when we answer all the questions. So the floor is open.
I'll be on for most of it, I believe, but if you think of something, you can also write it in the chat, even if it's like a few slides later. You can use the chat or you can just come on or raise hand and ask, but I'll be on. Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Morris.
Thanks, Major Cooper. All right. So we've talked assignments. Now we're going to jump into an overview. I'm going to try to keep it an overview of the timeline that you guys have from now until graduation. So in these first few months, focus on, finishing dental school strong. Really make sure you are getting your working as closely as you can to getting those graduation requirements done. The thing I see the most frequently is people who, didn't quite get one or two cases done. And so they're not able to leave the clinic, leave their dental school quite when they expected. So start now to stay on top of those requirements and keep your patients coming in to meet those requirements, because that can turn into a very big deal in the summer if you're not able to leave your school on time. If you have any of those delays, then make sure you notify myself and AFIT as soon as possible. Even if you're just suspecting it might happen, you're hoping it won't, but it just might. It's better to be safe and let us know what your situation is so that we can help you plan for the future and help rather than finding out last minute and then we don't have any options. So the sooner you notify us, the more we can help you. Don't be scared. Yes, it could potentially change some things, but we need to make, and that's if you're not graduating on time, but your options will be much more limited later in the summer than it is earlier. You're going to submit a medical form to MyFSS that you'll receive from AFIT to get your medical clearance. And this form is called the RCHRA. We'll go in detail about that, but you'll get it from AFIT soon if you haven't already. Complete it with your healthcare provider. And if you haven't gotten it yet, go ahead now and start getting access to your MyFSS account and working that. I don't have any eyes on like how to fix your account. So if you go through MyFSS help and you still need help, please contact AFIT because they can assist you better than I can. And if you aren't going to meet the deadlines that they tell us, please, and you can't get your MyFSS account to work, I do have a workaround. I can't do it for everybody, it's too labor intensive. But if you are just really under the gun, reach out to me and I can try to help you get that submitted for you so it can get in to be reviewed by the medical standards office. You still, even at that point, need to try to get access to MyFSS because they may have some back and forth needing some follow up.
When is that?
So, mhm.
Oh, is this it right here? I was just curious. When is that medical form due by?
I'm not quite sure because that comes out from AFIT,
Okay.
but it'll come out with the instructions.
Oh, okay. So it's not available yet. I just saw January.
Yeah,
They'll
sometime
just,
this
okay.
month it should be coming out soon, is what they told me. So I just keep an eye on your email. Also watch your trash. Like sometimes those emails get sent to your trash.
Okay.
And we'll try, if I find out, it's been sent out, I'll try to send like a Facebook message out so that everyone knows to look for it if they hadn't received it yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, in these first months, you're going to be getting ready to submit a few forms to me. For those that haven't yet already, I've notified you that I don't have your INBDE score reports. Some have yet to take the test and they're going to send me when they're done. That's fine. But if you have not responded to me to let me know when I should get that score report, you need to ASAP. That's one of those things you can't enter active duty without it. You'll also get a form from me that verifies when you graduate, another form that tells me where you're going to be moving from, the address information form, and then a letter that acknowledges that you're going to the AGD1 location that we've told you. Then later this spring, you'll be submitting to us a certificate of degree completion form. And this one's completed by your dental school and then sent to us either directly from the school or from yourself. And you can start planning your move. And there's a website here. The Military One Source website is a great one that you can start just digging around and getting some information. Then, as the summer approaches, you're going to be getting ready to get your orders. And I will announce once they've gone out through Facebook. And if you don't have them when that announcement goes out, you can let me know, and make sure that you get them. After you get orders, your first thing you'll do is schedule your movers to come pick up your household goods. And then another thing going on during that time frame as you graduate is you're going to sign and complete an oath of office that officially kind of transfers you from a second lieutenant in the reserves to a captain in the active duty. And you'll send me your final dental school transcript. So that's, let's see, some
Oh,
other
sorry.
things. Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry, Lieutenant Colonel Morse. So we get the orders in May, and then once we have the orders, then we can get on that website that was on that slide and then schedule our move. My only question would be, getting the orders in May, does that kind of like crunch the timeline, or is there typically not issues
Yes.
with that?
No, it's definitely crunched. This move is going to be probably the most crunch move you have in your military service. It is one, I will say it's one of the harder ones because of all the timelines. We don't have the luxury of time. We are bound by your graduation dates, the OTS dates, and the start of your AGD1 residency. So sometimes I would say it's rather common that you get your orders and you try to schedule your household goods and they can't pick them up before you have to leave for OTS, but we'll talk about that in some later slides of how to manage that.
Okay, and then, sorry,
And
just,
so the other thing, just for clarification, this website on the screen, you can go to now to start looking at how to looking at the jargon of what PCSing and moving is, getting familiar with just all the different things that kind of go along with it. You can start to plan your move. There's a different website that you actually submit your orders to schedule the move, and we'll talk about that later. And what's your other question?
I was just wondering, like when you have dependents, if that changes much as far, I mean, I guess it really wouldn't. I mean, the movers come when they come, no matter if you're moving with a family or not. I mean, that's pretty
It
much the way
it kind of does, and we'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
hmm So, something else to watch for is that on your degree conferral date, your HPSP benefits, that means your stipend and then paying your school, that ends. So, everyone's end date is somewhat different. It depends on that school's degree conferral date. Even if your graduation is delayed, your benefits are, and let's say your degree conferral date actually changes, it still ends on that original degree conferral date. It's a 4-year scholarship for those 4 years of dental school. So it ends kind of at that, official dental school end mark. And then you don't become entitled to your active duty benefits like your pay, your insurance, like TRICARE, health care through the military system. You become entitled to that on your EAD date. This is a big deal to understand what your EAD date is. EAD date is the day you enter active duty. It's the day your active duty service starts. This is also the day that you will start physically, your own person will start traveling to OTS. Okay. So that's when you become entitled to your pay. Do you get money in the bank on that first day on your EAD date? No, it takes more time than that. You're going to have to in process at your gaining base, meaning you'll go to OTS, go through those 5 weeks at OTS, get to your AGD1 or gaining base, and then process there. And finance and TMO will be one of the first offices you kind of go to, and they will start your pay record on active duty. It's through my pay, like what you guys are used to, but they are two completely different like records, and they have to start building that record, and that takes time. So the reality is you stop receiving pay in April, May, June, depending on when your degree conferral date is. And then you won't receive pay, I would plan on until August at the earliest, because that's when you're going to be arriving at your next base. It can take up to 6 weeks after you get there too, depending on how quickly they can get it done, and each base is different. So I plan ahead. Now's the time, if you haven't already, to start saving up, saving some money, or looking into potential. I'm not a big advocate of personal loans, but if that's just the only way to get through this time frame, you need to start looking at that now, or some other options for yourself to make sure you can get that through that time period. Because keep in mind, you're moving, so not only do you have living expenses after graduation, um, when you're at OTS, you're going to be provided food there. It's not like you have to pay for your food there, but you'll have your living expenses between graduation and before OTS. You're going to be paying security deposits on new apartments or homes, and your moving expenses are paid by you up front, and the reimbursements won't be provided until after you get to your gaining base after COT. Um, and as I mentioned, some delays in orders, getting your orders to you in May sometimes means the movers aren't able to move you, because you can't get it loaded onto the truck before you go to OTS. So you end up having to move yourself and get reimbursed later. So plan ahead financially for this big pay gap.
Lieutenant Colonel Morris,
Yes.
are there any differences if you're doing the move yourself before OTS, or is it a similar situation in time crunch?
It's coming. I'll go through in
Okay.
detail kind of how it works. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 4 different classes of OTS that residents are going to. I've got, and this may have changed just a little slightly, but we have an OMFS resident that was planned to go to a class that started in May. I have some Perio and Pros residents that are starting residency this summer, and an OMFS resident that starts in 2027 that are starting OTS in June. And then most of you are all my AGD1 residents, and a couple that are starting, Perio and OMFS in 2027, they're going to the course that starts mid-June to mid-July. And then those that can't make that class because their degree conferral date is too late are going to be going to a later course that's basically through the month of July. Okay, so all of you are going to 4 different OTS classes, and I've tried to spell this out as easily as I can for each class. So at the top of the slide, you can see which dates this class or which dates pertain to this particular class. So for most of you going to that mid-June course, 15 June course, oh, and I want to say this before I go any further. These OTS dates, they are tentative. Don't make any non-refundable plans or buy a house or do anything that's going to put you at financial jeopardy or plan to go on some trip that costs you thousands of dollars that you can't get reimbursed for if you have to change those plans. Don't do it, because these OTS dates are tentative. And the only reason I'm releasing them is because I know you guys are trying to plan some things for this summer. But you just have to understand that if, like right now, they're working to get the seats in these classes for you guys, they're not guaranteed. So if they come back to me and say, I can't fit all of your AGD1 residents in this 15 June class, well, then I'm going to have to move some of you guys around. Okay. That's just the reality of it. And I only have so much control in that. So please, I beg you, don't make any plans that you're going to be that are non-refundable or that you can't undo, because this is just it's not set in stone yet. Okay. All right. So those that are going to OTS 15 June, you will arrive at your OTS on 15 June. So your orders will actually start just prior to this. And how many travel days you have to get to OTS depends on how far away you are from OTS. And when I say how far away you are, that means how far away, like your dental school, where you've been living in dental school, is from OTS. The only exception to that is you have a home of record, which I'll go in detail about coming up. So it can be your dental school or your home of record addresses from OTS. Okay. So if you're driving, you'll be given like 2 or 5 days to get from where you are from your dental school address to OTS. If you're planning on flying to OTS, your orders will still say like how many days you have to travel by car, but you will actually fly on 15 June to get to OTS. And then after you get to your gaining base after OTS, they'll change your orders and your EAD date will change to 15 June. So the change doesn't actually happen like, they don't physically change the orders of the paper that you receive, but they just, when they in-process you into the Air Force at your gaining base, then they adjust that actual EAD date to 15 June. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, you get 1 day to travel to OTS because you're flying, because you don't need any more than 1 day when you're flying. In July, your OTS is going to end on the 17th of July, and you'll either leave OTS on the 17th or 18th and start traveling directly to your AGD1 or gaining base. You're not authorized to go anywhere else but your base, and you must report to your base upon arrival. And it'll be like you'll go to that check in with your like AGD1 director that first duty day that you are there after you've arrived. So if you arrive on a Saturday, then you'll check in with them on Monday. On paper, AGD1s officially start on the 1st of August, but in reality, each AGD1 does differ slightly on what date they actually begin, because it takes different amounts of time for people to get to them from OTS. Like Travis, it might take someone to drive a week to get to Travis. So their AGD1 might start slightly later than Eglin, which is within hours of Maxwell. And so they can start the very next Monday. So you'll get in touch with your AGD1 director, and they'll let you know exactly when that residency is starting, and when your orientation and in processing and all that jazz begins. Okay, I have a couple questions. I'm going to pause here and say, living arrangements on OTS, you'll be staying, that first night that you get there on 15 June, you will need to make your own arrangements. First, try to get lodging on base. If they don't have lodging on base available, you need to get a letter from them stating that housing was not, or that lodging was not available, and then you can stay at a hotel just off base, and then you'll check into OTS the next morning, just like your orders tell you to. So just that first night, the night of the 15th, you kind of have to have lodging arrangements. After that, you just stay on OTS campus. You'll be in kind of a dorm room situation. Your PCS to the gaining base, is our PCS to the gaining base usually scheduled after OTS graduation or after dental school graduation? Your PCS is going to be planned and scheduled like with your movers after dental school graduation. It'll be already in place after OTS graduation. If you're flying to COT and then flying from COT to your gaining base, when are you supposed to buy flight tickets, and are those a personal expense? I have a slide that goes over that, so I'm going to pause and come back to these questions in a minute. Okay, so that was for the majority of you. Now, I don't think my May OTS person is going in May anymore, but if you are, here's those dates, but I'm not going to spend much time on that. Those that are going to OTS on the 1st of June, here are your dates. You arrive on June 1st. Your orders are going to start just a few days before that for you to travel by car. If you're flying, then you'll actually fly, and your EAD date will be on June 1st. It ends 2nd of July. You're going to travel to your gaining base, leave Maxwell on either the 2nd or 3rd. You don't go anywhere else but directly to your base, and then report to your base upon arrival. The Perio and Pross programs officially start on paper the 15th of July. But again, those residencies may have some orientation or some things that you need to do before the 15th after you get there. So you'll just need to talk to your program director or sponsor for more information about what your responsibilities are after your arrival, and they'll help start getting you in processed right after you arrive.
So I did have
There.
one question.
Mhm.
So as far as traveling to OTS, are we allowed to elect to drive ourselves so we can just drive our car from OTS to our gaining base? Or does the Air Force assign, oh, you will be flying from your home of record, i.e. my dental school, to OTS? Or do I get to say,
you get to
go ahead.
choose. There are a handful of situations that, because of their degree conferral dates being so tight, I've contacted those individuals. I've contacted those people individually and said, are you planning on flying or driving? If they've committed to flying, they need to fly, because otherwise they won't get to OTS in time to start their program, and they can't leave any earlier than their degree conferral date. So there, but if you're not one of those people that has committed, like I'm, committed to something like that, then it is up to you. You can fly
Okay.
or drive. Your orders will
Okay.
say you have this many days if you drive, and if you choose to fly, then you only have that. You fly on, June 1st or whatever day you're supposed to arrive to OTS.
Okay. And then my last one right here. So the same thing for the June 1st or any of these dates, the first day of the COT training. So in this one, June 1, I need to have hotel reservation for June 1, correct? That's the only one I need?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you,
But
ma'am.
again, you want to, so to get that night reimbursed by the Air Force, you first have to verify that if you're going to stay in a hotel off base, you have to first get a letter from the lodging on base saying they don't have availability for you to stay there.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can stay on base. Like that's the primary thing they want you to do is stay on base that night. But if they don't have availability, get the letter and you can stay in a hotel, close by.
So if I stay on like the Air Force Ends at Maxwell, it can just it's kind of like a system that takes care of itself. They'll ask me, "Are you staying for orders?" And I say yes, and then it just kind of goes down a channel there, I guess.
Well, you pay for it out of pocket, and then you'll turn those receipts in at your gaining base to get reimbursed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for those going later to my 29 June class, you'll arrive on the 29th. Your orders will start just prior to this so that you can travel by car, or you'll fly on the 29th if you're flying. It's going to end the 31st of July. You're going to leave OTS on the 31st or the 1st of August. You're not supposed to go anywhere from between OTS and your base, just straight to your base and report to your base upon arrival. Again, the AGD1's official on paper start date is 1 August, but your AGD1 might begin slightly earlier or later than that. And because you're arriving later than probably most of the residents in your class, you definitely want to be in close communication with your program directors to let them know when you are planning on arriving. And in fact, that's just good for everyone to know. It's a good idea to be well, I'll say this. Right now, it's a little early to reach out to your program directors. If you have some super urgent thing that you need to work out or you have questions for, by all means, you can reach out to your program director. You have their contact information. It's in the AGD1 application, so you can do that. If you're trying to attend a wedding and you need to know right away if you're going to be able to attend that, or some leave you're going to have to take early on. I have no authority to give that kind of stuff, but your AGD1 program director is going to be the first, the person that will help walk you through that. Or if you have some moving concern that's other than a general question, I would just make sure they know when you do establish contact with them, let them know what your planned date of arrival is. So they kind of can have eyes on when you're supposed to arrive. And they'll probably even ask for most of that information. Generally, when the program directors are ready to start, kind of helping you guys plan, they'll reach out and send kind of a welcome letter. Some may have already done that. But if not, don't fret, they will. And they will also assign you a sponsor, which is usually an AGD1 current resident. And that sponsor should reach out to you. If you don't hear from that sponsor and the residency director has told you that the sponsor should have contacted you, then reach out to the residency director again and say, hey, I haven't heard from anybody yet. If you're not going into a residency, then you will have a sponsor assigned to you from the squadron commander that's at that base. And again, if you haven't heard from that sponsor and you're needing some help urgently or whatever, let me know and I can help contact you with the squadron commander to get you connected. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of these forms and things that I'm going to be asking for you over the next few months. The address information form. This is one that we have had a lot of trouble with in the past. So I want you to make sure you understand what addresses go on here. Essentially, these addresses are what are used to go on your orders to help so that your orders will reflect the correct address of where you're supposed to go from point A to point B. If your address is incorrect, then your orders will be incorrect. Then you're going to be in a situation where you have another delay on getting your orders corrected and all of that. So this is the time to make sure you're not misspelling anything, you're printing legibly, you're accurately filling out the form. So I want to walk through it with you. The first thing says, I will depart for EAD from the following address. This is where you're going to be paid your travel entitlements from. So traveling from this address to your first duty station. You can't just pick any address you want to move from, okay? This has to be the address that you resided at while you were in HPSP. So, like where you lived during dental school while you were receiving the scholarship. This is not the address where, let's say, your lease is ending and you're moving to a secondary location, maybe your parents' house. You want to put your parents' address on here. It has to be the address where you resided while attending HPSP. Okay.
I only
Um,
have, I'm sorry.
mhm,
So sometimes when
sure.
we certify those orders that we get for 3 pay periods a year, sometimes when I've tried to do that, they had me put in the address of the school rather than my actual home. I'm putting in my actual home, correct? I'm not putting in the address of my dental school on this,
Yeah,
correct?
right. This is your home.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mhm. Um, Then for number two, I prefer to have my EAD order sent to me through an Air Force secure system at the following email address. So you'll put the email address you prefer here. If you prefer to get it through the mail, you can put that address there. But I don't recommend this because it'll take longer to get them. If you have an advanced degree, like a master's or PhD in a health related field, then other than the DMD or DDS degree you're going to be receiving, then you'll mark I do, and you'll have to send me a copy of that advanced degree. Now, I will say often I get this and somebody's gotten like a master's in public health. That's the most common one I see. That will not be approved to get you any sort of constructive service credit towards your entry grade, meaning like if you somehow had a honestly, I have not seen any HPSB enter with this or getting extra constructive service credit. I think this is more applicable to the medical doctors that are coming in. But if you just want us to double check, you can send us in your masters and we'll review it. And most likely it'll probably get declined for any constructive service credit. If you were to get constructive service credit, it would mean that you might be a captain with like you would basically meet your promotion board earlier than you would without that constructive service credit. So, um, but it has to be a degree that um, like did not occur while you were in dental school and like simultaneously while you're getting your DMD and DDS. And it has to be a degree that will enhance your ability to not just enhance, but kind of gives you a specialization within dentistry. So that's what that is for. Then make sure I have your current contact, home and cell address or cell phone numbers, and let me know if you're married or single and how many dependents you have. Include your spouse is a dependent. So if you're married with no kids, it'd be one. If you're married with one kid, it'd be two. Okay, so let's talk about addresses. So on this form, like I mentioned, you're going to be putting on number one the address where you live, where you are living while you're in dental school during HPSP. You are authorized to move your stuff from that address or your home of record address. So there's two addresses that you're authorized to move from. Your home of record is by definition the place you recorded as the home that you were living when you initially commissioned to enter the military, like when you started HPSP. You can ship household goods from that address as um, to your gaining base as long as you're within your authorized weight allowance. Um, The home of record address for HPSP is the home of record address you recorded on this particular form, the AF Form 24, when you entered the program. The only time a home of record can be changed is if there's a break in service that exceeds one full day, and HPSP don't have a break in service when transferring from reserve to active duty. So, home of record is where you lived at a specific point in time. It's where you lived when you commissioned. This is not an address you can just you can't say like, oh, well, my permanent address is my parents' house, so I want to change my home of record to that. That's not how it works. When you commissioned, where did you live? That's the address you put on this Air Force Form 24 in Block 5, or sorry, Air Force Form 24. And that is by definition your home of record. If for some reason you think that that address on that Air Force Form 24 you signed is incorrect, you have to, after you're on active duty, apply for a correction of military records, and that's a whole process that I don't know the ins and outs of, but you could pursue doing that once you're on active duty. Why does this matter? Because you are allowed to, again, you're allowed to move from either the address where you're living during dental school or the address where your home of record address. And actually, it's not just that one location, it's a 50-mile radius around those addresses. Okay. So you can have your stuff in the apartment where you lived during dental school. Or you could move that stuff into a storage facility that is at your home of record, or within 50 miles of your home of record, or within 50 miles of your dental school address. Um, and that's if you have like a lease that is ending in May, but you're not actually leaving for OTS until June, that would be my recommendation is you need to pay. You won't get reimbursed for the storage unit, but you would move your stuff into a storage unit around one of those two addresses, and the Air Force will be able to pick those up from that address. If you live in California and your parents live in Washington, and after dental school you move all your stuff up to Washington, the Air Force is not going to pay to have someone come pick up your stuff from Washington. Like they're not going to send a truck to Washington to move you from Washington to your AGD1 base. Okay. Now, if you move all of your stuff in your car, that is risky. And the reason it's risky is that you're going to get weight tickets, and you're going to have receipts that have addresses on them. And so when you turn all those in to TMO to get reimbursed for your move, and they see, oh, well, you're moving from Washington, not from California. You're supposed to move from California. They may not reimburse you because you're moving your stuff from the wrong location. Now, you can actually fly. You can get a flight to OTS from a different state, a different location than these two addresses, but they're only going to reimburse you at the rate that it would cost them if the government rate that it would cost them to fly from your home of record or residing location, your dental school address, to OTS. I know this is super complicated, but I'm trying to give you all the details so that you can best plan. And this is the only way I know how to do it. Okay.
Lieutenant Colonel
I've got,
Morris.
yes.
Hi, could we go back 2 slides? I have a question.
Is this the one you were asking
Yes.
about?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. On number 5, marital status, I'm tracking that joint spouse, like military joint spouse, at least when it comes to BAH, they are not considered a dependent. And so if I check married, do I put number of dependents as 1 or 0?
Oh, that's a good question. Major Cooper, do you have any idea on this one?
Let me ask, and then I'll come back on and see. I'll ask someone here.
Thank you, ma'am.
It would, that is a really good question, because this is, how many dependents does she need on her orders? And truth be told, most of the time, the orders don't have dependents on them when you first get them. And then once you get to your gaining base after OTS, you take all your documentation to show, that these are your dependents, their birth certificates and social security numbers and all that kind of stuff. You take that to as you're in processing, and they add them in tiers, and they actually add them to your orders at that point. Most of the time, you're not getting an amendment to add dependents until after you've arrived at your AGD1 base. So but in your situation with you being joint spouse, I haven't had this question come up, and it's a good one. So we'll try to find out for you how to fill that out.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I got a question. When would be the earliest appropriate time to sign a lease or rental agreement for our gaining AGD base, since the gaining base can sometimes change even during OTS in rare cases? I will say since I've been here, I haven't seen an assignment change while people are at OTS. We do try to avoid assignment changes as much as possible, particularly with these first assignments. So, and often military members are told, don't buy a house or don't sign a lease until after they actually arrive at the gaining base, for that off chance that might happen. I also think that, any lease that you sign, you need to double check that it has a military clause in there. So if your orders get changed, you would be released from that lease. Sometimes that might, like there's a time frame on that, and I'm not exactly sure how long, like you might have to finish out that current month or something like that. So I would look at the details on how that works. But the appropriate time to sign a lease, that's going to be really individual for your own self, but I would say most probably sign them later, maybe in May or June. But that would be my best guess. But again, it's kind of on an individual basis, where you're going, what the market's like, and how much risk tolerance you have. And again, most of your assignments, I think, will stay stable, but there is an off chance that there's a few people that, if, I don't know, every year there might be like one that gets changed or something. So it is a bit, I wish it was more solid, but it's not. That's a bit part of being in the military, is these PCS is always having a bit of uncertainty to them. What if I moved during dental school? How would that change the home of record for moving household goods? So again, home of record doesn't change. Your home of record is where you lived when you commissioned. So the start of your HPSP is when you commissioned. That's your home of record. And you can go back through your forms that you signed when you first joined and find that Air Force Form 24 if you're not sure what that home of record is, and see what that form says. If you moved during dental school, you need to make sure that you update AFIT with that updated address, and use the POC roster to know who to contact if you're not quite sure how to do that. I'm not really sure how to do that. And the other piece is, for the address information form on number 1, you're going to use the address that you resided at when you graduated. So like if you move to a second location, use that second address. Major Cooper said, oh yes, go right ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just kind of wanted to add on to my question earlier about,
Sure.
I know that, we can't have a guaranteed date to know when to start a lease. I was just wondering if you knew anything about the Service Members Relief Act, that we can, in case the orders do change, I believe we should be covered, that we can terminate that lease in that rare case that it happens. But I don't know if you have a point of contact that would know more about that.
I don't have a POC. I'm sure you can find out lots of information online about that, and that's exactly what I'm referencing when I said a military clause. But that that Service Members Relief Act has several things that helps military members and their spouses during PCSs and changes like this. So get familiar with it so you know your rights as a military member. And yes, it can relieve you from a lease, but it might not be like day, you get orders and the day you get orders your lease should end, or right. Sometimes there's a like 30 or 60-day window or something. I'm not exactly sure what that window is, that you still, you have to kind of finish out that, pay your lease for the next 30 days after you notify them or something. So definitely get familiar with those, or at least know that those benefits are out there so that you can utilize them if you need them.
And then
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I have one other question. For the purposes
Sure.
of this move, because I've never looked at that website you gave us about like more information about moving. Are we considered second lieutenants or captains? And I don't know if that even
Captains.
matters. Or captains?
It
Okay, thank
does.
you.
You're captains. Yeah. As of your
Okay.
EAD date, you're captains. The orders you'll receive are as a captain. When
Okay.
when you graduate and you sign that oath of office, that is transferring you from, or promoting you, I should say, from second lieutenant in the reserves to a captain on active duty. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Major Cooper said joint spouse, married spouse is not considered a dependent. So, Lieutenant Valerius, that was, for you on number 5, you'll mark married and then 0 for number of dependents. All right. Good questions, everybody. You can keep them coming. That's what this is for. Okay, sometimes when we talk about all these addresses, the question of, well, state of legal residence comes up once you're on active duty. Legal residence is, it's more of a like tax purposes kind of address or thing. So, does your state of legal residence have to match where you're stationed, or does it have to match your home of record? Not necessarily. You kind of get to choose this to some limited extent. You can choose to maintain your current legal residence where you are right now. You can maintain that after you enter active duty after dental school graduation. So if you're, going to school in North Carolina, you're a North Carolina resident and you want to stay a North Carolina resident, but then you're stationed in California for AGD1, you can maintain your North Carolina legal residence while you are on station in California. Okay. But you'll have to check back with North Carolina, look at their websites to see how do I maintain, your legal residence there. Every state is different, so I don't know all of the requirements for everyone, but sometimes this means that you have to keep your driver's license in North Carolina and your car registered in North Carolina, or you have to update them when you're moving. All of that. So you'll need to do some research on your own. If you don't really want to keep the legal residence where you are right now, then when instead of staying a North Carolina resident, when you move to California, you can claim California as your legal residence. Okay. Your home of record has absolutely nothing to do with your state of legal residence. Home of records where you lived when you commissioned, it's specific to a time and event that occurred. It does not determine your state of legal residence at all. Your legal residence determines what state you pay taxes to. And when you, state your legal residence, when you enter the Air Force and you submit your documents for your LES and your pay, like that all comes down to where you're paying your state taxes to. All right, so that's what I have on state of legal residence. We've brushed on this. You're going to be reappointed to a captain on active duty. So you're moving from a second lieutenant 01 in the inactive ready reserve. And then when you graduate and sign the oath of office, you'll be reappointed to a captain 03 in the active duty Air Force. A couple of documents officially do this, and one is the oath of office and the other is certificate of completion degree. I will send these to you later this spring, and you'll send them to me signed and completed by, well, we'll go over how you complete them. So your reappointment to these are the two forms. When you receive them, you'll get lots of detailed instructions, and we'll even go over this in our next briefing in detail again. But just so you know, that certificate on the left is what is completed by your school. Make sure you fill out the top part and before you give it to your registrar. Sometimes I get them and the top part is not filled out. Make sure you put your information there, and then your school registrar will complete the bottom part. They don't have to put their seal because they can send it to me digitally. Every now and then, I think a school requires that they mail it to me, and the I'll give you the address and the instructions if you have to mail it. But please send it digitally if you can. This just verifies that you will actually graduate on the day that you're planned to graduate. Some schools will not send this to me until it is very solid that you're graduating. And so it's okay if this gets to me a little later, but the earlier I get it, the better. Your oath of office is the form on the right. Again, you'll get detailed instructions of how to complete this, but basically know that you can have, you're going to sign it, I think, the day after your graduation, or and it's not your graduation ceremony. I said graduation, that's not really accurate. It needs to be signed and dated on the day after your degree conferral date. So you can get that degree conferral date from that certificate of completion, and that's how you know, okay, the very next day is going to be the day that you've got to have this oath of office signed and completed. The top part you fill out, let's see if I can get, you'll fill out this portion here, and I have instructions for you. And this right here will kind of say where it's occurring and when. And then you're going to have someone else sign and actually sign this form for you. This person who can sign can be any officer of any rank, captain or higher, as long as they retired or are active. So they're an active duty member or they retired from active duty service. I think any branch, it doesn't have to be Air Force. So
Can it be
some
a
of you
family
have,
member?
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It can be some like a dental school clinic instructor. So any one of those can sign there. It could be even a fellow dental student that maybe has reappointed to captain before you. Like it can't be on the same date, but a day after you. So that's who can, the oath of office can be done. If you can't find someone to sign that form for you on that date, then you can get a notary to do it. And notaries, can be at banks or just kind of around town or whatever. You have to make sure you go on the actual day that the date, that required date in order for the notary to sign. Right? More information to come on this. I just want you to know it's coming. The documents I have to have in order to get you orders so that you can just be tracking these with me are those IMBDE reports with a passing score, your medical qualification, which is that RCHRA form you'll get from AFIT, the address information form, and that certificate of completion of degree requirements. Just so you know, I don't write your orders, but once I get these documents, I do forward them to be written and get processed. And that process last year, we went through a big overhaul and a big change, and it took a long time. I'm really hoping that things have gotten ironed out a bit more and we're able to get orders to you quicker this year. We've made some steps to try to get things. Well, there's a process called the scroll that has to be signed that usually takes months. I submitted that months earlier than I normally do to help see if we can get the request for orders in sooner than we did last year to give them more time than they had last year for processing. But I trust me, we are doing all we can during that time of year to get you your orders as quickly as possible, because I know it makes a big difference for you. Um, we're anticipating getting them to you, mid-May. If you haven't received them by then, you should hear from me about, if it's delayed or what's kind of going on. I'll make Facebook posts to keep you all informed. We've talked about the INBDE report. If you have not submitted this to me yet, know that I need an official report. I can't take a screenshot. You have to request this from the Joint Commission. Your AGD1 application has instructions for how to do this. And so please follow those instructions to send it to me. The fee can be reimbursed through AFIT. They'll reimburse one copy. And if you want to request that, you can get the information there. I also, so you don't have to request multiple copies, I'll send this to the credentialing office. So if you get asked by someone Air Force to turn in this report, please let me know, because I can send them the copy you send me and kind of verify it's official and everything, so that you don't have to pay that expense again. All right. Big do's and don'ts of your EAD orders. Make sure when you get them that you read them completely and carefully. You may not understand absolutely everything, but please do read them, because most questions can be answered from those actual orders, and they'll come with some instructions. We've said this before, don't pay non-refundable deposits or make investments of any kind prior to receiving the orders with instructions on how to proceed. Think of it, I think I've got some slides saying that, so I'm going to wait. All right, EAD orders for your dependents. They're not going to be on them initially. Once you get to your base after OTS, you're going to go to the CSS office to have them added with an orders amendment, and you'll need to bring these documents with you. Make sure you print off about 10 copies of your orders and carry them with you through COT and through in processing. And make sure nothing got cut off when printing. I printed mine off before where like just one line, it was very hard to tell, but one line was printed off and it was a big headache. So just make sure everything prints appropriately. If you are starting a rental lease and you need a letter that's going to verify how much you're being paid by the Air Force, you can just email me. I have a template. It's really easy for me to send that to you that you can provide. So don't bug your AGD1 directors for this. Just when you make the request so that I can do it more quickly for you, add in what base you're going to, yes or no if you have dependents, and the dates of your OTS class, and I'll get it to you pretty quick. I do sometimes go TDY, like on trips or am on leave or something, so please don't send them to me with needing them back the very next day. I might not be able to get them. I usually get them out to you pretty quickly, but don't put yourself in a pickle. So as soon as you think you might need one, go ahead and make that request to me and I can get you that letter. All right, let's talk move details. I think I'm getting into more of that now. Setting up your move. This is that same website you can go to help plan your move and get familiar with the process. You can start doing that now. Once you get your orders, you'll schedule the pickup of your household goods. Now there's 3 different move types, and you get to pick how you do this. The household goods move is where the Air Force pays for everything, assigns you to movers. They come to your house or storage unit and pick up all of your goods and then drive them, put them in a storage unit while you're at OTS, and then deliver them after you arrive at your gaining base. Your PPM move is, some people call this a full Diddy move, is where you don't have that at all. You pay for the move yourself. You move everything, whether it's you hire a moving truck yourself or you put things in your car or truck and trailer, whatever, and you move it all on your own, and you get paid by weight of what you move. So you kind of weigh your car empty and weigh your car full, and that's the weight. The difference is the weight of your household goods, and the Air Force will pay you an amount depending on the weight of what you moved. And beyond that, I'm not exactly sure all the things that they reimburse for. Primarily, it's that they reimburse you weight. A partial PPM, or some people call it a partial Diddy move, is where you do both. You have movers move, the majority of your household goods, like your furniture and stuff, but then you also move some stuff in your car and you want to get reimbursed for that. This is personally what I've done most or all of my moves so far. Um, the so they come pick up all our big things, and then just the items that we want to keep with us, so the things that are non-replaceable, whether it's a sentimental value or those very important documents like social security cards and whatnot, those we keep on us in our car, and we move them ourselves, and then we get reimbursed for the weight of what we moved, plus we don't pay out of pocket for the military movers to move us. Again, don't buy anything moving related until you have orders, because you risk getting reimbursed. And the movers can store those household goods for up to 90 days. So that means, they could store them during OTS. And if you needed a little time, even after arriving at your gaining base, before having them delivered, they can store them for a little longer than that. Now, think of it this way. The Air Force is going to move you from point A to point B, from your dental school address to your gaining base. But they have to order you to actually go to that gaining base first. Like, I know you all know that you're moving to an AGD1 residency and you're going to go to COT and all this stuff is scheduled. But honestly, technically, on paper, you have not received an order from the military to do any of that stuff yet. Okay. So if you start buying things to move and expect to get reimbursed for them, like you rent a trailer before you have and pay for a trailer or something before you have your orders, then there's no chance that the Air Force is going to reimburse you, because they haven't technically ordered you to move yet. And I say trailer, I'm not really sure if they reimburse trailers or anything like that, but I'm just trying to use an example of if you move your things before you actually have orders, they're not going to reimburse you for moving your stuff, because they haven't told you to go anywhere yet. So you're not going to pay to move your stuff during the wrong time frame, and they're not going to pay to move your stuff to a location that's not authorized. So I'm going to go through some more tips, but I just want to, this is kind of my disclaimer, risks that you take if you don't follow the moving options that I outline here. Financially, I can't guarantee that your expenses, both moving expenses and travel expenses, will be reimbursed by your gaining base. In the extreme situation, God forbid, if you had an accident or something happened during your move and you're not where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there according to your orders, I can't guarantee that the military is going to provide you, the types of services you might expect, medical, legal, or any of those things. So you're putting yourself at risk if some extreme situation were to happen. The other extreme thing is if you're not following your military orders, that is called being AWOL. You're absent without leave. Your leaders don't know where you are. That's bad. And that can result in, when you're on active duty, you are under military law. So when you're AWOL, you could receive paperwork or other disciplinary action. So that gets pretty serious real fast if you're not where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. You can fly to OTS from I think I mentioned this. You can fly to ODS from a location other than your home of record or dental school address. You will buy the ticket yourself and keep your receipt. You can book this. So when you get your orders, there should be instructions on how to book that flight on your orders. Sometimes they want you to book the flight from OTS to your gaining base before you go to OTS, and other years they've said you buy your ticket after you get to OTS. So you'll just have to follow what your orders say regarding that. Um, if you're flying again from a location that's not your home of record or dental school, they're only going to reimburse you up to the rate that it would cost them to get a government ticket from the home of record or dental school. So all that to say, you may have some out-of-pocket expense depending on the ticket price. All right, to try to help explain this, I've tried to break it down to explain that the Air Force is paying to move you, like your person, from your home address to OTS, if you're going to OTS, and then to your gaining base. So they're going to pay your travel expenses for that. They're also going to pay to move your stuff, but they're only going to pay to move your stuff from your home address to your gaining base, not to OTS in between necessarily, unless it's like in your car that you're driving to OTS. Your dependents, the Air Force is also going to pay to get their person, their actual travel expenses from home address to your gaining base. They're not authorized to go to OTS. And when I say home address here, keep in mind I mean home address, or so your dental school address or your home of record address. Any deviation from these recommendations could result in financial loss, and you'll refer to your orders for this information, that home of record dental school address. Okay. I know I feel like I'm hitting the same statement, I feel like over and over and over again, but it's because every year we have so many questions about this. I just want to make sure that it is clarified. Now, when you get to OTS, you're not going to start submitting for reimbursement of your moving expenses. You'll hold on to those until after you get to your gaining base. And there is where you'll submit your to the TMO, the travel management office, and your finance office to get reimbursements. I got a question. So we can move stuff from our address at which we resided in dental school and our home of record if they're different, or just one of those addresses, not both. I do think that you can have things picked up at multiple locations. How many multiple locations? I'm not sure. I definitely think you can have them picked up at 2. So yes, I think you could have some stuff picked up at your dental school address and at your home of record, but that might be something you have to verify with your travel management office to know. Your local TMO office is at the Air Force base that's closest to us. That's who I would contact first. And if they direct you to maybe a sister service or something that, that might happen. But yes, I'd start with contacting the Air Force base that's closest to you and just Google to find that contact info. Here's another web address. It may be the same one as before. Oh, no. This is the web address where you can go ahead and log in to DPS. And this web address is that DPS web address, and get yourself set up in the system, but you can't actually officially request your move until you upload your orders. So you have to get your orders first, but you can go ahead and get in the system, get everything kind of filled out except for uploading your orders, I think. If you're planning on having household goods move you and you want to do a PPM, like get reimbursed for what's in your car, then you're going to actually start 2 moves in DPS, not just one. And we've gone over that. Okay. Okay, so here is some step-by-step what to expect, how to plan your move out. Now, this first one is the ideal move. If we could have everybody move like this is how we would do it, and really what our goal is for everyone, although we know the reality is not everyone can do this. The goal would be for you to receive your orders mid-April or early May. You set up your move in DPS, then because you've received your orders, then through that DPS, you're able to schedule your pack dates. So where the pack date being when movers come to your house and pack up all your household goods. And then your pickup date, which is the day that the movers come to your house and load up the truck. Usually it'll be, like they'll have one pack day and then one pickup date the very next day.
So
Something like that.
I'm
Mhm.
Colonel Morris. So so the way the moving, they won't pay for movers to actually come in and pack your stuff up for you. You still have to
They
pack
do.
it. Oh, they do.
No,
Okay, I know.
they do.
Most people
Yeah.
would obviously like to pack their own stuff, but they do pay for them to even come in the house and pack it.
Yes. So that's the pack
Okay.
date. The
Okay.
pack date is the day they'll come in and they pack up all your stuff. I think my first moved, we packed up everything ourselves. The movers came in and they unpacked and packed it because they're the ones that are taking responsibility for everything. And if they arrive and everything's broken, then, we'll make a claim saying you broke all my stuff. So they want
Okay.
to make sure that it is packed correctly. So if you're wanting to pack something yourself, just be aware that they may not
It
be
might mess
willing
with
to,
like.
yeah, they
Okay.
may not be willing to put that on the truck and want to repack it themselves.
I see what you're
If you're
saying because
having
they
the
can't.
military pack you up.
Okay. And then this is a very nuanced question. I apologize, but as far as like gratuity for the movers, I've only moved once. Does the Air Force cover that cost too, or is that just
No.
on us? Okay. Thank you.
No, and I think that has actually been discouraged. It's been a few years since I kind of looked into it, but I think it's been a
Mhm.
bit discouraged. Like members are discouraged from doing that practice because it sets a precedent that all airmen might not be able to do. So,
I get you.
as a captain in the Air Force, you might be able to financially afford to tip your movers, but a airman that just joined and they're 18 years old may not be able to do that. And so
Yeah.
um you could kind of look into that a little bit more on what recommendations are currently, but I think a few years ago that was the thought behind that.
I understand. Thank you.
Mhm. Um where was I? Okay, so you get your orders, set up your move online, then you schedule your pack dates and your pickup dates, and you are able to schedule them before your EAD date. So before the day that you start traveling to OTS, your gaining base. Ideally, that's what happens. Then your EAD date comes, so you start driving your car to OTS. This is your travel day number 1. You also will want to get empty and full weight tickets for your car. You can do this on the very first day that you start driving. You don't want to do it earlier than that. If you do it earlier than that, they won't reimburse you. But you can do it later than that. You could do it while you're traveling. You could do it at OTS. You could do it after you arrive at your gaining base. It doesn't matter as long as you're getting those weight tickets after your EAD date. And what are the weight tickets? It's just, you take your car, you Google and find a weigh station that's somewhere along your travel plans or at your arrival or whatever. And you're going to weigh your car full and then empty out all your stuff and then weigh your car empty, and you get a weight ticket for that. The ticket, like the cost of actually getting it weighed, is reimbursed, and then you will get reimbursed based on the weight of the stuff that was in your car, the difference in those two weights. If you go overweight for your rank, like each rank is allowed so many pounds of stuff to move, between what the movers move and what you move in your car. If you go over it, then like there's a cap and they won't reimburse anymore. You're moving it at your own expense. I don't know what that cap is. You'd have to Google it, but I don't hear that that's an issue very much for most dental school graduates. Um, So you've started traveling on your EAD date, and then you arrive at OTS by the day before OTS course starts. And we went over those dates, what you must be. You arrive on that last authorized travel day. You're not supposed to travel more than, I think, 250 miles or something like that. I think your orders will specify on any given day, and that's how that travel day is established. so that you're traveling safely. Then after OTS, you drive your car to your gaining base, straight to your gaining base. No detours, no going back to your home or your dental school address to pick up your stuff, no picking up stuff at your parents' house that's way out of, you know, um, somewhere crazy. You go straight to OTS. And then you'll schedule your delivery of your household goods from the moving company to be after your arrival at the gaining base. If you're in a residency during this arrival, make sure that you are coordinating that with your residency director during orientation and in processing and getting, started in your residency. There's often days where like they've had to schedule some, appointment for you and your class to be, and if you don't get that done on that day, you're going to have to reschedule and it'd be like a big headache and it might not happen for another month or something. So make sure you're coordinating with them so that you're not missing something super critical in order to get your household goods delivered at your house. Okay. So here's an ideal move if you're not going to OTS, because there are some out there that are not going to OTS because they went to USAFA or they're exempt from OTS because they've kind of done something originally beforehand, or if you're have a medical condition that is not allowing you to go to OTS this summer. So what will happen is you will receive your orders mid-April, you set up your move in DPS on the website, you schedule your pack and pickup dates to be before your EAD date. And then on your EAD date, you start driving your car, not to OTS, but to your gaining base. This is travel day 1. Again, you get your weight tickets anytime after your EAD date. And then you arrive at your gaining base on your RNLTD. That's your report no later than date. This is you arrive on your last authorized travel day. Okay. And then you're going to schedule your delivery of household goods to be after your arrival at that gaining base. Just make sure you are coordinating with your residency if needed, or if you're not going into residency with your sponsor, just to make sure you're not missing something critical in the clinic. Okay, so what if you can't schedule your pack and pickup dates to be before OTS or your EAD start? So like the movers just say, we can't get there until, 3 weeks after OTS starts or whatever. Okay. So one option is, if your lease is ending, this is similar to like if your lease is ending and you need to move your stuff out of your apartment. What you can do is move your household goods to another location. That location could be a storage unit or pod, as long as it's within 50 miles of your home of record or your dental school. You can move your stuff to that location. And then you schedule those pack and pickup dates with the moving company to be while you're at OTS, and you give your power of attorney, so like authorization basically, to a spouse, a family member, or a friend who are willing to be there at that storage unit or pod to get it loaded onto the military truck. Okay. You'll have to ask TMO specifically what actual paperwork is needed to, make sure that that person is authorized, like they'll actually take it from them because you're not there and you're yourself. But that is the primary way that we recommend you get your stuff moved if you're wanting the military to move you. Then you start driving your car to OTS starting on your EAD date. You get your weight tickets anytime after your EAD date, and then drive your car to your gaining base after cut and schedule your delivery of household goods after you get to your gaining base. Okay. So it's just the pickup part where you are having to kind of coordinate with someone in the local area to help you get your stuff loaded onto the truck. Another option, again, if you're not able to get the movers to pick up your stuff before COT, is the same thing. You have your stuff moved into a storage unit within 50 miles. Have a friend or family member or spouse load the stuff up onto the truck for you. And then what you do is fly to COT. Like we said, your orders will tell you how to do this, and then you fly to your gaining base, and then you schedule your delivery of household goods to be after your arrival at the gaining base. In very few situations, occasionally someone will arrange with the gaining base to allow you time to pick up your car, but don't count on this. It's like a special permission you'll have to ask your commander, your AGD1 director for. If you're being stationed on the East Coast, like in Eglin, and your car's going to be in California, you're talking like a 7-day trip, and you have not accrued any leave to go get your car, to take leave to go get your car. So you'd be asking for, 7 days of leave from your new boss right when you arrive. That's not a great look, in my opinion. So I wouldn't bank on this being your, primary way to get your car to you. I would recommend that you have, if you're flying to OTS and flying to your gaining base and you need to get your car, I would recommend having a friend or family member move that car for you. Just understand that the expense of traveling that car, driving that car across country or wherever, is not going to be reimbursed, because the Air Force is going to pay to move you, like your person, from your dental school cot to gaining base. But if you're flying, that's how you're traveling, is you're flying. They'll pay for you to travel by car, but they're not going to pay to travel by car um, and what am I, airplane. I don't know. I'm in the Air Force. Can't think of the word airplane. Um, so just keep that in mind. That would be a separate expense. They will not pay to ship your car in this situation. But something to keep in mind, if you have a spouse, they can drive. So they can drive a car separate from you and get reimbursed for their travel expenses. They can also do a weight ticket for that second car. You'll actually get, if you have kids or other dependents, then you'll receive per diem and whatnot for the spouse and your kids at slightly different rates than what you receive. So they will get paid for their travel expenses to move as well, and they can drive that car separate from you. So you have to leave. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let me make sure I don't miss anything. So you have to leave on your EAD date and arrive on a specific date, right? But your spouse and dependents aren't limited by those dates like you are. They can move more separately and independently from you. They can actually, once you have your orders, they can leave that area and move to the new base without you. Like, you have to stay, but they can move without you. Your household goods, the big thing to remember here is your household goods can't be delivered until after your EAD date. They can be delivered while you're in OTS as long as there's someone there to accept them. So something that could happen is you get your orders, you schedule your move, or you just say, we're going to move ourselves, and your spouse and kids go ahead and before you leave for COT, they go to the gaining base, and then you go to COT. While you're at COT, the household goods are delivered, and then you meet them at the gaining base once COT is over. So that's something that you could do. Another situation you could do is you schedule your move. The movers are going to pick up your stuff while you're at COT. So you go to OTS, spouse loads the stuff up onto the truck while you're at OTS, goes ahead to the gaining base, and then you go to the gaining base after OTS. Oh, sorry. Spouse goes ahead to the gaining base and has the household goods delivered while you're still at COT, and then you go meet them with your stuff already delivered after COT at the gaining base. So those are some other scenarios you can do if you have a spouse to make those arrangements for you. I think this slide covers all of that. The big kicker here is household goods cannot be delivered until after your EAD date. That's, I
So
keep telling you.
would my spouse, I have small kids, and so I have a spouse and two dependents. So would the Air Force pay for my spouse and my dependents to fly from my home of record to the airport nearest my gaming base? Or no matter what,
Yes.
they have to drive? They would? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Something you can look for too when you're looking at hotels as you're traveling is some hotels will have a government rate, and that government rate is usually significantly cheaper, or sometimes significantly cheaper than the main rate. You can book that as an active duty member to help save some money during your move. Your travel days, I said 250 miles. I think it's actually 350 miles per travel day is where that calculation comes from for how many travel days you have. Okay, I get this question a lot. If you have household goods at a location that's not your dental school address or home of record, the Air Force will not pay to move it to your gaining base. What if you moved to your parents' house after graduating from COT? Nope, they're not going to pay to pick that stuff up. What if you moved during dental school and your address is wrong? You got to change that address through AFIT and make sure that your address is correct, as we discussed on that address information sheet. Let's see. Okay. Just when you're trying to kind of wrap your head around like, wow, why will the Air Force do this and not that? Just keep in mind from the Air Force's perspective, they're paying to move you from your current station, which is dental school, to your new duty station, which is your gaining base. And they just don't care if you have stuff at other locations. That stuff will have to be moved at your own expense. And we've talked about this, so I'm going to skip through it. If you're wondering what PCS expenses will be reimbursed, there's a website here. You can look that up. If you are trying to ship frozen breast milk, then please let me know as soon as possible so that we can add that onto your orders. I think that in order to receive it, you have to actually put that on the orders ahead of time. Okay. So last year, these are slides from last year, and last year the moving companies were they were trying to change some things up. And to be honest, I don't know the details about it right now about how all that is shaped up, or I don't know. It didn't sound like it went very well last year. So I don't know if this year, as people are PCSing, if they will have this new global household good contract anymore. I think it went away. But if you guys are getting any information about this, that it's being used and you're confused and not sure what to do, feel free to reach out. I can help you research a little bit more. But this is just for your awareness. This was something that applied last year, and I really don't know that it will apply this year. Okay. Clarification, you are allowed to leave your dental school address after you have received your orders. So once you get your orders and you've graduated from dental school, let's say you want to go on a trip or you want to go visit your family, that's fine. It doesn't change any of the previous info. Your household good rules are still the same. Your household goods must be moved from your dental school address or home of record. You cannot arrive at or go to your gaining base before OTS. So you can't move ahead of time, move before COT. This is why it's okay to put your stuff in a storage facility near your dental school and go visit with family in another state before your EAD date. You can fly or drive to OTS from another CONUS, like continental location, not Alaska, not Hawaii, not outside of the country. But we talked about how the reimbursement's different. This is huge. You must be in the continental US on your EAD date when you start to travel to OTS. So please don't risk being out of the country. Flight changes and delays are extremely common these days. Don't get stuck overseas on your EAD date. I would recommend, don't be out of the country within a week of your EAD date just to be on the safe side. I don't want to hear that, oh, I was in Italy and I was supposed to be back, 2 days before my EAD date, but then flights got delayed and now I won't be in the country in time for, please don't call me with that. I don't want to deal with that with you. And I don't want you to start off your Air Force career with that. So please make your plans appropriately and plan for the unthinkable to happen as you're moving forward. All right, so let's talk about commissioned officer training or officer training school, OTS. Your orders, I took this snapshot directly from the orders that were written last year. This is what the orders will say. By order of the president, it'll have your name and social security number, is ordered to extended active duty voluntarily for an indefinite period in the U.S. Air Force in accordance with Title 10 in the grade of captain. Effective date of duty is on or after, and it will have your EAD date. So this date right here, let me get this date right here is your EAD date. After this date, proceed from address which member will depart for active duty. And this will be the address that you provide for me on number 1 on the address information form. So you are leaving from this address to depart for active duty and report on, and it'll have that 15 June date or whatever that, whatever your OTS arrival date is, should be here to Maxwell Air Force Base billeting office. That billeting is another word for like lodging office. On the next day at 0630 hours, report and park vehicle in the OTS parking lot. Do not enter the building, then report to the dorms at 0700 hours. Early reporting to OTS TDY station is not authorized. So they're telling you where to go that first day of OTS. Permanent duty station. Upon completion of OTS, officer will proceed and report to the billeting office at the permanent duty station. Billeting office, again, is the lodging office at the permanent duty station. And then it has some numbers and letters that mean, that where you're going, where you're stationed at. JB, Joint Base Andrews, Maryland, as directed. RNLTD, report no later than date. It should be, really just a few days after, however many travel days you need to get from Maxwell to your gaining base. And then PCS IDA, AFSC, that Air Force code is something that signifies your job, and you are all 47G3s. That means you're a general dentist who have not completed an AGD1. Category is DC for dental core, ADN. That's some stuff I don't understand. Medically qualified, it'll be the date that your RCHRA form says it was completed. Regular scroll ID and scroll approval, and then home of record. It will state that home of record that we've discussed. So that is, your orders will read something like this. It details exactly where you're supposed to be, what time and when. Please do not report to your gaining base first and then go to Maxwell for COT. This will result in multiple complications in your pay and benefits. It's very important to follow your orders as they are written. If you want to know more about OTS, honestly, I don't know a ton about it anymore. It's been a long time since I went. So your best resources are, 1, ask questions in the Facebook group, because there are still members in there that graduated last year and they went through it most recently. You can also check the OTS website, which is listed here. Keep in mind, they do mostly an 8-week course, and you're going to a abbreviated 5-week course. So some things may not pertain to you. It might be a little confusing, but you can find some information there, particularly about what to expect or what you need to have upon arrival, that sort of thing. What kind of uniform stuff to look for. If you have questions about traveling to COT, you can ask me. If you have already attended OTS, were ROTC or USAFA, you will not attend OTS. Make sure I'm tracking you. And we really should have already been in communication about that. Your family members cannot go with you to OTS. And if you are required to go to OTS, but something like a medical condition prevents you from attending it this summer, be aware that you will still have to attend OTS at a later date, but it'll be an 8-week course, not this abbreviated 5-week course. Okay. Uniforms. I get conflicting information about this. Maxwell has a uniform shop there. I think sometimes they can be low on items. So yes, if you can get access to a military base and buy uniforms ahead of time, then that's probably very helpful, might be a little less stressful for you. But if you just can't do that, it's okay. They have stuff there. You can buy it there. I think I saw someone say, if you don't have everything just like perfect, it does give them something to kind of get on to you about because your uniform isn't perfect. So maybe adds a little stress, but it's not like you're not going to graduate or something from OTS. So,
and just to be sure, like if we were to buy uniforms beforehand, the rank insignia that we buy is captain, correct, for OTS?
yes, you're buying captain.
All right, thank you.
You will, yeah. So if you're not sure what to buy, and you're wanting to get these in advance, go to any military clothing store, and ask for help. I think even Army and Navy might have some things for Air Force, but I would just call ahead of, to those to ask before you assume. But any Air Force military clothing store should be able to help you. And you just show up and say, I need, I'm going to OTS and I need to get everything in advance. And they'll be able to assist you with getting all the basics of what you need. If you're having a commissioning service with your school, you will need to be in uniform for that. Just be aware that Air Force uniform wear is very specific. It is complicated. There's lots of rules and regulations. If you wear the uniform, you really should know how to wear it before you wear it. So, if you wear it in the presence of people who know, like who are retired, or they know how military uniforms should be worn, and they see you wearing it incorrectly, don't be shocked if they correct you on it. Because it's a point of pride and part of our military, customs. So, if you're unsure of how to wear your uniform, I encourage you to look at this Air Force instruction listed here, the Department of the Air Force instruction. This has been changing a lot recently. There was a new memo that was just released recently. So just because you read it today, don't assume that it has not changed before OTS. You may want to do a quick search and just look through it before you actually arrive to OTS as well, because things may be updated. Maxwell does have lactation support. If you need that, make sure you let me know beforehand, before we get the orders written, so that we can let OTS know that you'll need that support. But they have private rooms and refrigeration. They can also help accommodate you with shipping breast milk home while you're at OTS. But this all has to be on your orders ahead of time. So let me know. If you need lactation support at your gaining base, then make sure you let your AGD1 director or your sponsor know so they can help you find those things. Okay, so pregnancy and birth during residency. If you are or you become pregnant before OTS, you have to let me know as soon as possible. Pregnancy is a medical condition that prevents you from attending OTS, and you won't be allowed to go until a minimum of 6 months after the birth event. You have up to 18 months after the birth event to, like, you can delay it that long. I wouldn't recommend that long unless you just medically, need that. It's definitely allowable, but my office will be tracking those who have not attended OTS, when they were supposed to, and they'll make arrangements with you to attend it once you get to your gaining base, or even on your way to, after your AG1 on your way to your next base, they may schedule it during that time frame. If you or your spouse are going to give birth during the residency, any residency, let me know, and definitely let your residency director know so that they can help advise you on the leave program and just how that will work in the residency. If you're curious what that leave program is, you have the Air Force instruction here, and there's a memo as well that you can Google and find. When active duty members are allowed 12 weeks of parental leave for the parent that's giving birth, in addition to the convalescent leave that the parent giving birth receives. Um, the convalescent leave has to be taken like immediately following the birth. It's like the leave that you need medically to heal and recuperate after giving birth. The parental leave, though, can be taken in increments up to 1 year after the birth. They have to be at least 7 days each increment. There's like when you read it, they mention a 1 year period that you can extend that time frame, but our dental residents don't apply for that extension. So those are kind of the nitty gritty things. The AGD1 programs have some flexibility to work with residents to take their leave while in residency training, but you just can't miss critical events and courses for graduation. If you do, that is absolutely going to delay your graduation or prevent you from graduating. So, and if more than a few weeks of leave are taken during training, there's going to be an extension of training that's required in order for you to graduate. Medical leaves don't extend the length of your service commitment, but they, in the sense that they make them a longer time frame. But if you stay past your official graduation date and have to extend your training because you are out for any medical reason, then you won't start serving that HPSP commitment until that training is over. So at the end of the day, your service commitment will end later than it did before the extension was there, simply because you started serving it at a later date. If you have an extension of training, it can also delay or may impact the base that you go to after a residency. Because let's say like our moving cycle, everyone moves in the summer, but if you end up graduating in December instead of in, August or July, then there's not a big moving cycle going on, and the availability of the different bases we can send you to are a lot less. So it's not a punishment by any means, but it's just a reality of how the moving cycles for the Air Force work. So that's like a move kind of outside the normal PCS cycle. So just something to know as you're talking and making plans and kind of working through this with your residency directors. Deferment of training, like not starting your AGD1 residency until the following year is considered on a case-by-case basis. However, I will say for your class and those graduating in 2026, we will not be able to defer training simply because in 2027, we have more HPSP people coming in than we have AGD1 spots. So if for some reason you absolutely can't like medically do an AGD1 residency starting this summer, you will not get to do an AGD1 residency. We can't delay it, and we can't do another there's not another opportunity to like get into a residency program except as you are entering. Your only way to do that way to do more training would be to go through like the AGD2 or other specialty programs. So let's see. I think I went over all of that stuff. Oh, the big takeaway here, though, I know I've given you a lot of details about this. I can't help you plan specifically how this will work out with your residency. Basically, if you reach out to me, or when you reach out to me and say, I'm pregnant, or my spouse is pregnant, then I'm going to be pointing you to your residency director or your sponsor, to not your, sorry, or your commander, to help you plan and figure out how all that will work, because they're the ones who actually have the authority to like grant the leave, and they know their residency schedules. And each person who has been through this situation, they are like it's very much handled in a case by case basis. Pregnancies or deliveries right at the start of a residency, where you're trying to be out at the beginning of a residency, that's a lot harder to overcome than a pregnancy that's like towards the end of the residency. So just because the residencies are so front loaded with so much critical information that you just can't miss. If you miss it, there's no way to, get caught up. Like if you miss the conscious sedation course, like that is only occurs once in a year. So just some practical things that your residency director is going to have to talk to you about. And again, it's very personal, case by case situation that everyone works really, really hard to accommodate and work with you and your family. But there are restrictions and limitations that we're under that have to be taken into consideration as well. Okay. Let me check in with the chat and see what I've missed here before we move on. Okay. In a partial Diddy move, to get fully reimbursed, do we need the moving company we choose to provide weight tickets? Yes. Or is reimbursement just for the price of the movers irrespective of weight? I think you need weight tickets, but I think that's pretty common when you move. I would ask this question of TMO just to be safe, because I don't have experience hiring movers, and so I haven't done it myself, and I don't want to steer you wrong. So I'd ask TMO that question. Can the moving company be chosen, or does the Air Force have a list of authorized companies to be used? So if you're hiring a moving company yourself, then you can choose whoever you want. If you're having the Air Force move your goods, an HHG move, household good move, then the Air Force is going to pick the company. They're just going to connect you with that company, and you have them come out, and but you don't have any say over what company you are actually assigned to move your stuff. If you're not married yet, are you able to live off base with your significant other, fiance, while in the AGD1 program? Yes, you can live with whoever you want to. And if we are, when do we know what our housing allowance would be for our specific gaining base? You can just Google BAH rates, and you can put in the zip code of the base where you're going, and that will give you the housing allotment for that area. Just if you're not legally married, then they will not count as a dependent. So you'll have to look at the rate for, no dependents. That's the rate you'll get. Oh, good. Thank you, Miss Black, for providing that website. If we choose to pay out of pocket for flights to our AGD1 base and pay out of pocket to ship our car to that location, we will still receive the monetary allowance in lieu of transportation plus per diem for ourselves and our dependents, even though we didn't actually stay in the hotels and drive the miles. So I'm not as familiar with the term MALT, but if you fly, they're not going to pay you any money for hotels, and they're not going to pay you any money for miles. If you fly, they're going to pay to reimburse you for flying. So like I said, they are going to pay for your travel expenses. So if you fly, they're going to pay for you to fly, not for you to fly and to drive. If your dependents fly, they're going to pay for your dependents' flight costs, not for mileage for their flight costs. If you drive, or if your dependents drive, then they will pay for the miles and hotels. I hope that clears that up. If it doesn't, let me know. You will get per diem for your travel days. And you can find some of that information through those travel DoD mill websites. They will not pay to ship their car. That's out of pocket. Okay. All right, what happens when I arrive at my base? After your graduation from OTS, you're going to drive and fly to your base within the specified travel days. If you fly, you have one travel day and you only get per diem for one travel day. You're going to start in processing at your base. This is in processing means you're going to a bunch of different offices on the base to check in and say, hey, I'm here. And they're going to give you things to do, forms to fill out, websites to go to, information. You're going to be on overload. But you'll get in processed at your base. Plan on reporting for duty every day. You're going to have your household goods delivered, hopefully before the start of your AG81 if possible. If not, make sure you, or either way, coordinate this with your AG81 director. If you're not attending OTS, make sure you contact me to establish your EAD date if we haven't already. This is the day you want to start traveling to your base. I usually recommend that this is no earlier than not 8 July 26. It would be like right after the July 4th holiday in 2026 and no later than the week prior to the start of your AG81 residency. My recommendation for arranging housing, if your arrival is within a week or two of the start of your AG81 residency, make your housing arrangements before your arrival. Travel there on your own expense or do virtual tours. It's not that crazy to do a virtual tour and sign a lease based off on that. I did that where I currently live, or send a spouse or friend or something to go check out housing for you if you can't go. If your arrival is several weeks before the start of your AG81 residency, or you're not attending a residency, you may choose to stay in base lodging while you house hunt for after arrival. And this is true, honestly, anyone. If you show up and you don't have a place to live quite yet, you can use base lodging while you're house hunting. It's just if you're those that are starting residency cannot do house hunting days. But if you're not starting residency or you're arriving super early, you might request house hunting days from your the squadron, and but that can only be granted if you have not signed a lease or bought a house. Okay, so let me tell you about TLE, which is temporary lodging expenses. You can go to this website and find out more. But basically, after you get to your base, if you don't have a place to live yet, you can live in TLE and get reimbursed. It's like a hotel, but usually more space than a hotel, and they'll get reimbursed up to 7 days. You can stay there more than 7 days, but you'll be reimbursed for up to 7 days if they have availability. So if you're counting on doing this, I'd try to call them as early as possible and this is called the billeting office or base lodging office, and tell them that you want to see if they have a room available with TLE. If they don't have a room available, get a letter from their front office and that says that they have no availability, because you'll need to turn that in when you in process and get reimbursed. Then stay in a hotel room off base and get at least partial reimbursement for that hotel room. And like I said, you submit that letter into the finance office during in processing. What is TLE like? It really varies by location. In my experience, it's a more spacious hotel room, pretty dated decor. It's not going to be like the Ritz-Carlton by any means, but you could have a full kitchen or kitchenette. They may even have some appliances or cookware for you, a washing machine, multiple bedrooms for families, and a living area. So you have more space and can be a bit more comfortable. They are usually significantly cheaper than staying in a hotel in the area, and the cost is based on your rank as captain. To know who to call, just Google TLF or lodging at the base you're arriving at. ask about availability and if you can book ahead of time, and you can ask them what the accommodations are like. Just let them know, this is your first PCS, your first duty station, to kind of help them know like you need more information. This is a good option as you look for a home, or let's say you have a home, but all your stuff is stuck in storage and they can't deliver it for 2 weeks or something. You could stay here while you wait for your household goods to be delivered. House hunting days, I mentioned if you're in a residency program, this is not an option for you. But if you're not going into residency, you could take house hunting days, which is permissive leave. You have to sign in to your base first and just check in. Often there's thing in processing you have to do before you take house hunting days, and it has to be approved by your commander. But this is a maximum of 10 days that you get reimbursed, or sorry, you don't get reimbursed for any costs or anything. It's just like 10 days for you to find a house or even move your household goods into your house and get settled. Um, so just you can talk to your sponsor about that for yourself. All right, we are winding down, just a few more slides. I do have a reminder and word of advice. Keep in mind that your AG1 or your graduate dental education director or your supervisor, they're accountable for you at all times. So make their job easy and keep them informed. You're expected to be at your dental clinic at the start of the duty day every day, unless you've been given other instructions or permissions. And that means, every clinic might be a little bit varied, but in general, that's from 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. You're there doing work. Be at work during those hours, Monday through Friday. Again, unless you've been given specific permission to not be there for some reason. This starts the day that you report to base on your report no later than date. Check in wearing your service dress. You'll learn that in OTS if you don't know what that means, but wearing that service dress uniform on that first day you get there. Most sponsors or directors will tell you to do that as well. At the end of the day, don't go home until you've been permission to do so, or you've set expectation. The leadership's expectations for you kind of have been set, and they let you know, if they want you to check in with them at the end of the day or not. So I recommend checking in frequently with your leadership, especially in the beginning. You don't know what you don't know yet. They are learning you. They are, you're trying to build a professional relationship right at the start. So start off on the right foot by following some of these recommendations, and make sure to keep your eyes and ears open. Military culture is very different than civilian culture. So pay attention. If people are doing something that you think is different or odd or weird, or you're not sure why they're doing that, ask questions. Learn from both the officers and the enlisted. Some enlisted have, already have 18 years of military service under their belt, and you can learn a lot from them. So use your resources when you get there. All right, starting your pay record. In order to get your pay record, you have to have your signed oath of office submitted. So that will be something that's coming to you in a couple of months. Your pay is going to officially start on your EAD date, but it takes time for you to actually receive that pay, like we talked about. So be prepared for delays. If after you end process, it's been 6 weeks and you still don't have pay, make sure you talk to your supervisor or your director, so that they're aware, and sometimes they have to step in and talk to finance for you if there's some kind of issue that you can't get resolved. If you have prior service, so my ROTC, USAFA, or active duty service, just so you know, the service dates office, as you enter active duty, they have 90 to 120 days after your EAD date to review and apply your prior service to your record and pay. So what that means is your pay is going to be messed up more than likely when you first start getting it. If they overpay you, don't assume that they're just giving you free money. They will recoup it when they find out. So just set it aside so that when they say you owe X, Y, and Z, you can give it to them, or they just start taking it from your future pay and you'll need that money set aside at that point. If it's underpaid, if they've underpaid you, then continue to, well, first of all, give them that 120 days. And if it's still incorrect and not corrected by that 120-day mark, you need to talk to the finance office, make sure your residency director knows so they can kind of go to bat for you as well to get that pay corrected. So, short end of the story is make sure you know what your pay stub should look like. And if it's not correct, get answers. I have a hand up, Lieutenant Valerius.
Hi, Lieutenant Colonel Morris. Yes, my question is the prior service bullet point. I'm coming from ROTC, but from my understanding, my pay on the pay chart will still be 03 with less than 2 years of service because technically it says I have no service. So if that's true, then should I expect a delay of 6 weeks or a delay of 90 days to 120 days?
It could be either, honestly. I think I remember having some residents that were prior ROTC and their pay was kind of messed up in the beginning. Not necessarily just because they had, they didn't have years in service calculated, but it was just, I don't know, for whatever reason, the transfer in the system, our ROTC people always tended to have some issues getting started.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Incentive pay is a special pay that you guys get because you are or will be licensed dentists. This starts out at $20,000 a year and it's paid out monthly. But this is not, so all of your other pays, your BAH, your BAS, which is the little money you get for your food, your base pay, all of those, they get established automatically when you check in with the finance office. Incentive pay does not happen like that. You have to sign a contract and submit it and follow all the rules of the contract, or you will not get this pay. And it's no one's fault but yours if it doesn't go through, if you don't get this pay because you didn't do it all correctly. I will say we work really hard, myself, the residency directors, to get you the information you need to get this contract completed correctly. And every now and then we have some hiccups with the medical special pay office, some changes that have kind of gone over the last several years, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you follow the guidelines that we tell you and to get this submitted yourself because no one else can do it for you. This is just a little bit about it. You will get more later on in the year once you're in residency because you can't do it ahead of time. You'll do it after you get to your gaining base and either your sponsor or your residency director will help you. If you're not going into an AGD1 residency, I would say make sure be proactive and asking your sponsor, how do I submit this contract? Asking questions. I do reach out to those people that should be guiding you individually, but if you feel like you're not getting the guidance you need to get this done correctly, then you can reach out to my office directly yourself. So how do you get this pay? Well, you have to be 90 days after your dental school degree completion. So that degree conferral date, we take that, we add 90 to it, and the day after that is the first day you're eligible. You also have to have an unrestricted state dental license. It can be in any state. I don't need these documents. You just need to make sure you hang on to them for this pay. If your dental license does not become active until after that, like 90-day post degree completion date, then now your dental license active date is your like the first day that you can have this pay. Okay. So both of those things have to be true. And whichever one is later, that's going to determine your effective grade, your effective date. My FSS is where you're going to submit this contract after you get to your gaining base. And that's the part that no one else can do for you. So you'll get lots of information about this once you're in the residency, but I want you to know now that it's your responsibility to make sure you know how to do it. Okay. All right, licensure requirements. It doesn't matter which state you get a license. It just has to be one of the 50 states in the US. It does have to be unrestricted. So what does that mean? It means that the license doesn't waive any requirements like for CE or training or testing, that's different from the main license for that state. It doesn't have restrictions pertaining to your clinical competency. It doesn't restrict your practice to a military or federal facility. So typically, like they may have, quote, a military dental license that you could buy. Those are not usually unrestricted. They often have like a reduced fee that's not unrestricted, and those are not authorized. So it does not waive the standard license fee solely on the basis of you being in the military. It doesn't waive or extend license renewal date solely on the basis of you being in the military. So if it's any of these things, it's restricted, and that does not work. You'll have to get a different kind of license. Okay, a few reminders. Your program director should reach out to you via email. Make sure when they do, it may not be tomorrow or in the next even month, but when they do, make sure you respond to them in a timely manner. If you're not assigned a sponsor, let me know, like I said. If your name changes, it's really too late to be changed on your orders. If it's already done, let us know. But if you can hold off on changing your name until after you've entered active duty, that would be best, because we've already submitted the scroll with your official name. We are going to be writing orders with your official name. And so all of that, like those names have to match as you are entering active duty. Look for a military clause or some mention of the SCRA when you are signing a lease, in case there's an assignment change. And I just don't recommend buying a home when you are going into an AGD1. It's a 1-year assignment. That's just 1 year. You're going to be moving right afterwards. Even some of your residencies, you're only there for 2 or 3 years. I don't know that that's the best advice, is to buy a home, because you're going to move right after that residency is over. General reminders that you guys have seen before. If you're traveling overseas, including Alaska or Hawaii, make sure that you are telling AFIT this information. Keep this slide so you can remember to do this. Their email address of who to email is here. Do CC me, particularly if you are traveling after your dental school graduation. So you have to notify us of this even after your graduation. You just stop notifying us after you've entered active duty. So if you're traveling between graduation and the start of OTS outside of the US, I need to know that. And so does AFIT, just so we can make sure there's one, so we know where you are, and two, we're making sure we're not running into any issues. And then you have to be CONUS on your EAD date when your active duty starts. Keep us in the loop. Communication is huge. If you're just ghosting us and not answering our emails or taking a week to respond to us, that's not good. Please be prompt when we email you. Star us or favorite us or whatever it takes on your devices to remind you to get back to us quickly, because delays in communication can mean delays in you getting your orders. And at the end of the day, I know that's what you guys are really wanting, so you can start scheduling these moves. So keep that communication open. There's a lot of different offices that will be contacting you. We are not located in the same building. We're not located in the same base, in the same state. So make sure that as you get emails from one maybe AFIT or someone else versus emails from me, that you are keeping track of who requested what information and you're sending it back to the appropriate person, okay? If you've lost access to MyFSS and MyVector, start working now to get access so it doesn't become critical for you. If you need help with AFIT, this is Miss Adams' contact information here. It is updated from, nope, this is not updated from the last year, or sorry. Her number was updated. If you'll look in I thought I did this, but I guess I did not. Um, her number was in the annual brief. She said it changed. So if you look at the HPSP annual brief, then her accurate number is there. And I apologize. I thought I updated this, but I guess I did not. And then these are some other AFIC contacts. There is a printout of this POC roster in the Facebook group on the media tab, where you can have all these contacts in a like a picture form. And then we will have our next Zoom meeting with just the D4s after your orders are released, so we can help answer questions about your orders and the last minute moving questions that you have. So that's the next plan for our next briefing. Okay, so that will probably be April or May. All right, now is the time for questions. I'm going to open it up to anyone. If you have a personal question that you would rather not ask like in front of everyone, then after we've answered as a group, I'll stick around and kind of ask everyone who doesn't have one of those questions to leave, and we can have a little more private conversation if needed. So opening the floor to anyone who has a question. Oh, there was a question in the chat. Let me answer that real quick. Maybe slightly unrelated. Is TRICARE available for my dependents while I am at OTS? So technically, they are eligible for TRICARE starting on your EAD date. The reality of getting care while you're at OTS, that's questionable in my mind. Because one, they're probably not in DEERS yet because you have not in processed at your gaining base. So I would say if there's some urgent emergency, like you have to go to the ER, like go to the ER by all means. But if there is medical care that they can wait until you get to your gaining base to take care of, that's what I would recommend. Excuse me. You can also call TRICARE and ask about, excuse me, and ask about this specific situation. They would be able to guide you a little bit better on how to get them enrolled. And you may have to call them while you're at OTS in order to do that. Okay, opening the floor if anybody has a question.
I actually have a question that's maybe you can't answer. But when we're in our AEGD like residency and we have to, like, if we're in someone's wedding, for, like, so to speak, do they give us vacation days that we could take off to travel for like that weekend or no?
So when you start active duty, you will accrue, you'll start earning days of leave, and you earn 2.5 days of leave each month. Now, when you're in a residency program, just because you've accrued leave doesn't necessarily mean like you can take it right away. So
Right.
that attending a wedding or something is very much dependent on what's going on in your residency, how well you're doing in the residency. Like if you're way behind on stuff and you're going to have to miss some days of training, then your residency director might not be in support of that. But if you're doing well and you're not missing anything critical, you've accrued the leave, they might be more inclined to support that. Also, if it's short, if it's just a day, maybe 2 max, because they are CODA accredited, and so they have to make sure that you don't miss too many training days. So if you're out sick a lot for some reason, or your kids are out sick, or, your kids are sick and you're out because of they're sick, all that stuff like will kind of play into. So it's a very individual case by case basis, and you'll just have to talk to your residency director about that. I would just time that conversation well. Again, you're making first professional you're having your first professional interactions with your new boss, essentially. So would it be the very first question I ask them about? Probably not, would be my advice. But also, I know that sometimes things are under a time crunch, and you might have to be ordering dresses and all that kind of stuff. So you kind of have to balance that. Well, I would just do ask the question respectfully if you're having to do it earlier rather than later, if that makes any sense.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
know it makes a lot of sense. And it's honestly like same thought process. Just thought I would ask.
Perfect. Yeah. All right, it doesn't seem like anyone has any more questions for the group. So thank you so much to everyone who attended. I really appreciate it. This is probably one of the biggest briefings that we have for your class, because you're starting to put all the puzzle pieces together of what's happening next. But I wish you all the best as you are finishing up your dental school requirements and getting ready for graduation. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email me as always. I am going to stay on the line. If anyone has a more personal question they would not like to ask in front of the whole group, feel free to hang out. But if you don't have any questions like that, I'd ask that you'd go ahead and sign off and have a good evening. Thank you.